Grandmaster, ladies and gentlemen, it's a tremendous privilege indeed to be here in Estonia, although this time last night I had severe doubts as to whether I would reach Estonia or not. But absolutely delighted to be here today to address the Grand Lodge of Estonia, and in so doing will hopefully further cement the strong bond that already exists between the Grand Lodge of Estonia and the Grand Lodge of Scotland. I've been asked today to give you a short perspective of Scottish Freemasonry, something which I suppose is impossible to cover in a short address. So what I will try to do this morning is pinpoint some notable dates and events and try to give you an understanding of how Freemasonry is structured today, explain what we are doing today and how in some ways it differs from other constitutions. First and foremost, I would like to make the point that modern Freemasonry, as we all recognise it today, irrespective of which constitution we belong to, it has its origins in Scotland. That is, even though England and Ireland had Grand Lodges before we, the Scots, had. We formed ours in 1736, some 19 years after England and 11 years after Ireland. But ladies and gentlemen, the reason was perfectly simple. The Scots did not see any benefit whatsoever in having a Grand Lodge. In fact, many of the lodges that existed before 1736 were very much opposed to the idea of having a Grand Lodge, as they feared that it could remove the autonomy that they enjoyed. Prior to the erection of the Grand Lodge, there remains much evidence, some of which is in the custody of the Grand Lodge of Scotland, that Freemasonry existed in Scotland prior to 1598. In 1598, the first Shaw statutes were produced. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the Shaw statutes, let me explain that in 1583, William Shaw was appointed by King James VI, who later became King James I of England. He was appointed by King James as Master of the Work and Warden General, with the commission of reorganising the Masonic craft. In 1598, he issued the first of the now famous Shaw Statutes, which set out the duties of all members to the lodge and to the public. These statutes were formally adopted in 1598 at a conference of Scottish lodges that existed at that time. The statute was agreed by all the Master Masons present, and arrangements were made to send a copy to every lodge in Scotland. This statute here signifies an advance in the organisation of the craft, with geographical shires constituting a sort of intermediate level of organisation. These territorial lodges ran parallel to another set of civic organisations called incorporations, often linking Masons with other workers in the building trades, such as rights. Now, a right, if this, just talk among yourselves. Here we go. Oh, do we go back one? That's this. A right is an occupational surname originating in England. The term right comes from circa 700 AD, an old English word meaning worker or shaper of wood. Later it became any occupational worker. For example, a shipwright is someone who builds ships. A wheelwright makes wheels. A wainwright or cartwright makes and repairs wagons or carts. And a playwright is someone like William Shakespeare, a writer of plays. The word carpenter was introduced into England in the years after the Norman conquest in 1066 and slowly replaced the traditional name and meaning of wright in most of England. However, the term wright is still used in Scotland in the original meaning of skilled woodworker. The incorporation of wrights of the Trades House of Glasgow and the incorporation of wrights and masons of Edinburgh retain the word in its original meaning in the role of promoting the woodworking trade. In some places in Scotland, such as Dundee, Stirling, the lodges and incorporations became indistinguishable. In other places, the incorporation linked the trade to the borough. Now, a borough was an autonomous municipal corporation in Scotland, usually a large town or a city. And it became a mechanism whereby the merchants exercised some control over the wages of the building trades. In places like Edinburgh, where the proliferation of wooden buildings meant a predominance of wrights or carpenters, the Territorial Lodge offered a form of craft self-governance distinct from the incorporation. Also, the masons and wrights used differing ceremonial motifs at their respective events. The role of deacon provided a link between these incorporations and the lodges. It also imposed penalties for unsatisfactory work and inadequate safety during work. So we had health and safety laws way back. More importantly for Freemasons today, I don't think this is working, sir. More importantly for Freemasons today, Shaw drew up a second statute in 1599. Now, the importance of this document lies in the fact that it makes the first veiled reference of the existence of esoteric knowledge within the craft of stonemasonry. It also reveals that the Mother Lodge of Scotland, Mother Co-Winning number 0, was in existence and active at that time in 1599. The impact of these statutes was dramatic. His instructions to all lodges, but not to incorporations, purely to the lodges, that they must begin to keep written records, meet at specific times, test annually the members in the art of memory, and enter apprentices in the lodge records. This meant that lodges became fixed, permanent institutions, and we still do these things today. We hold in Edinburgh the oldest surviving Masonic minute of a Scottish lodge, Lodge Aitchison's Haven, which dates back to 1599, some 425 years ago. The Lodge of Edinburgh Mary's Chapel number 1 still retain their records in their lodge room in Hill Street in Edinburgh, again going back to 1599. The same lodge can also boast the first record of the initiation of a non-operative mason in a lodge in 1634. And to this day, the master of that lodge, at his installation, takes his obligation on a Bible dated 1585. The foregoing is only a fraction of the evidence that still exists, which shows that Scotland is indeed the birthplace of Freemasonry as we know it today. Today, Scottish Freemasonry exists in over 40 countries throughout the world. The lodges in Belgium, Chile, Fiji, Jordan, Malta, Mauritius, Peru, Togo and St Kitts all report directly to Grand Lodge. They do not belong to a district or superintendent. Our structure is relatively simple. The Grand Lodge of Scotland, there we go. The Grand Lodge of Scotland is the governing body and is based at 96 George Street in Edinburgh. Sitting directly below the Grand Lodge, we have 32 provincial Grand Lodges throughout Scotland and 26 district Grand Lodges scattered across the globe. Each province has a provincial Grand Master and each district a district Grand Master. In addition, we have 4 Grand Superintendencies, one in Bermuda, one in Panama, Sri Lanka and Malawi, and as I mentioned earlier, those further 14 lodges who report directly to the Grand Lodge of Scotland. A superintendency is basically where there are insufficient lodges to form a district, but they have sufficient to save them reporting back individually. The 2 newest superintendencies that we have in Sri Lanka and Panama both have a very vivid vision of growing in numbers to enable them to become districts. Scottish Freemasonry has developed a distinct and unique character, even by comparison with the other British Grand Lodges. The Grand Master of our Constitution bears the unique title Grand Master Mason. The first Grand Master Mason was William St Clair of Roslin, and I was greatly privileged to be the 111th Grand Master between 2018 and 2023. Each lodge in our Constitution is a sovereign body in its own right, with a considerable degree of control of their own affairs. I mentioned earlier that many of the lodges in existence prior to 1736 were very much opposed to the idea of having a Grand Lodge, as they feared it could remove the autonomy they enjoyed. To preserve their traditions, those early lodges were permitted to retain their own procedures, regalia, and distinctive rituals. Having accepted that principle of independence of the old lodges, it was impossible, therefore, to deny lodges founded after 1736 that same degree of independence. Of course, the rituals must contain the principal points of each degree, but the scope for elaboration is considerable, with numerous interesting additions. Since Scottish lodges have the right to choose the colours of the lodge regalia, meetings can be very colourful indeed. While standing in the east in the Grand Lodge of Scotland, it's an absolutely wonderful sight to see the diverse range of colours in the regalia. I would now like to, if you go back one, that's it. I would now like to tell you about the main charity project we've been involved in. It was started by my predecessor, Brother Charles Ian Robert Woolridge Gordon of Esselman. We are supporting Prostate Cancer Scotland. And by the end of my term as Grand Master Mason, we had donated a total of £1,125,000 to the project. Prostate cancer is the most common cancer affecting men in Scotland. Nearly 1 in 2 men in Scotland will be affected by prostate disease at some stage of their lives, and 1 in 10 are likely to develop prostate cancer. And I'm sure that the statistics in other countries represented here today will not differ greatly from that. The most recent figures for Scotland show that 4,265 men were diagnosed and 1,066 men died from prostate cancer in 2021. However, survival rates amongst men with prostate cancer have encouragingly doubled over the past 2 decades, with 84% of men with prostate cancer now surviving it. This is, in my opinion, has been a crucial project which will benefit men not just in Scotland, but literally throughout the world, because of the research that we, the Grand Lodge of Scotland, have funded in Scotland. As a result of our, As a result of our involvement with Prostate Scotland, we are now involved in 2 legacy projects. The ProsPack, which provides a special pack to all men, and it's not just to Masons, to all men being treated for cancer in Scotland. Now, depending on what form of prostate disease they are being treated for, they receive a pack best suited to their needs. ProsPacks are a free support and care pack aimed at all men who are starting treatment for prostate cancer. The ProsPacks have been developed by Prostate Scotland with funding from the Grand Lodge. Regmore Hospital up north in Inverness was one of the first Scottish hospitals to be on board with the project. The packs are available to men through oncology and urology units in hospitals where their treatment is taking place. 4 different packs have been developed to support men undergoing those treatments in radiotherapy, brachytherapy, surgery and chemotherapy. Prostate Scotland consulted with patients and clinicians in the development of the pack contents to provide men with a range of useful items. Now these include, and you might find some of these strange, but they have been developed by experts in the field. They contain moisturising lotion, sensitive soap, male continence pads, mouthwash, ginger tea, thermal socks, a water bottle, antibacterial gel and eye masks. Secondly, we are recruiting and training volunteer brethren from all our provinces and districts as prostate champions. These are brethren who are on hand to give basic advice and direction to brethren in respect of signs and symptoms. But not only that, while they're there to give talks to lodges to raise awareness among brethren, these champions also go out into the community and talk to a diverse range of organisations to raise awareness not only of prostate disease, but importantly, to raise awareness of what Freemasonry does in the community. And it's interesting to note that very often it's some of the ladies' organisations such as the Women's Guilds or the Women's Rural who are most attentive, because they exert an awful lot of pressure onto the menfolk to actually do something about it. Next one. At national level, we have supported and continue to offer support to a range of charities, but also where natural disasters have occurred. Working alongside the Buddhist monks from the Zhu Chi Foundation, the Grand Lodge of Scotland helped to build a new shelter which comprises a community centre, health centre and a police station to replace many of the buildings that were demolished during the Typhoon Haiyan. We have supported our brethren in Zimbabwe and Malawi on projects to alleviate the suffering and hardship caused by severe flooding because of Cyclone Kenneth. and as a result of Hurricane Dorian, we provided much needed relief to our brethren in the Bahamas. In addition, each lodge regularly supports local, national and international charities according to their own means and ability. It is estimated that at least another £500,000 is raised annually by lodges for worthy causes that they support locally. Brethren, ladies, so far I have spoken about the past or the present. What about the future? The most important change to take place during my term as Grand Master Mason has been the restructuring of Grand Lodge, some of which has been somewhat radical. After almost 300 years, we have done away with Grand Committee and replaced it with a much smaller, more dynamic governance and strategy board. In order to restructure, we have had to totally revise our constitution and laws. This has been a massive undertaking for our Grand Secretary. However, his efforts have been endorsed by our administration committee and by Grand Lodge itself. In June last year, Grand Lodge voted overwhelmingly for the changes, and we are now working hard to move those changes forward. The other major change to the committee structure is that the new committees will be populated by brethren who have the requisite skills to enable those committees to make measurable progress. Whereas in the past, the committees were populated by members of Grand Committee who did not necessarily have the knowledge, experience or skills for that particular committee. In 2019, I commissioned an international survey to be conducted amongst members of the Scottish craft. We had over 7,500 responses, which have helped enormously in pointing the way ahead for us. The newly formed Governance and Strategy Board are using much of that data in their deliberations, and the 3 strategic objectives taking us forward are to place membership at the heart of Scottish Freemasonry, to grow Scottish Freemasonry internationally, and create inspiring communication and engagement. As a major part of attaining those objectives, we are embarking on a new IT structure, which will hopefully deliver a new external website or app to provide information and recruitment. Opportunities for prospective new members. A secure internal website for use by existing members that will provide an enhanced membership experience. A new digital Grand Lodge Masonic passport for every member of the Scottish craft that will provide member benefits and privileges according to role and connect each member directly with Grand Lodge as part of a membership ecosystem. An expandable modular IT platform able to adapt to the future strategies of Grand Lodge and the needs of members. Administration functionality to coordinate Grand Lodge back office functions and management of the external and member websites. Most worshipful Grand Master, distinguished brethren, ladies, brethren all, I hope that in this short presentation it has given you a flavour of what the Grand Lodge of Scotland is all about, where we have come from, where we are now, and where we hope to be in the future. We can justly say that we are the historical home of Freemasonry as we recognise it today, and I extend the warmest of welcomes to each and every one of you to visit us in Edinburgh whenever the opportunity may arise. My sincere thanks to you, Grand Master, for the warmth of your welcome, for your outstanding hospitality, and to you, ladies and brethren, for the attention you have given to this presentation. Thank you.